Hi, everyone. My name is Maia Raynor, former legislative director in the Massachusetts State Senate and currently a political consultant. I am going to be walking you through the legislative process in Massachusetts and how a bill becomes a law. I worked in the State House for 4 years, so I'm hoping to bring some of that expertise today to help break this down a little bit. So, the legislature, which is the group of people who make laws, it is one of the only full-time state legislatures in the country. Meaning that the legislators are working throughout the year on a 2-year cycle to pass bills. There are 40 members of the Senate, which is the upper chamber, and 160 members of the House of Representatives, which is the lower chamber. Together, there are 200 members of the Massachusetts legislature. That 2-year legislative cycle begins with bill filing. That is when a bill, which is a document that is a proposed change to current law, is written, drafted, and then formally filed with the clerk of the Senate or House of Representatives. So a bill can be drafted way before the bill filing deadline, but that first few weeks of the legislative cycle is when all bills are filed by the clerk of the Senate and the House of Representatives. And that is what starts the 2-year legislative cycle. The next part of the legislative cycle is the co-sponsorship period. When a bill goes before the House and the Senate, the main legislator who filed the bill is called the lead sponsor. That is the person who has said they are the ones trying to make this bill into law. For other legislators who would like to show their support, they can co-sponsor a bill. So you have the lead sponsor and then the co-sponsor. Co-sponsors are legislators who are supportive of the bill. And when you are advocating to your representatives, it's a great thing to ask them to do to co-sponsor a bill. The more co-sponsors or legislators a bill has, it shows the leadership of the Senate and the House that there is a lot of support for this policy. Then in the 2-year legislative cycle, there is the budget process. We don't have too much time today, so we will talk more about the budget process at a later date. But just to say, the budget is the only bill that is filed during the 2-year session that must be passed. The budget is all of the state's money going to different departments, going to different services, and that must be passed before the end of each year. Then we continue with the legislative cycle with formal session. This is when the House and the Senate respectively meet to debate and potentially pass bills That isn't when it becomes a law. That's only that first step. So when a bill comes up for debate, there are amendments filed to the bill by different representatives. And so an amendment is basically a addition or change to the bill by adding another section or striking out another section. Amendments are also another great way to push forward policy that you'd like to see change. So even if the bill that you're concerned about isn't the one up for debate, there might be amendments to that bill that you really care about. So that's what happens during formal session. And we're going to discuss a little bit more about what that looks like. So formal session is just one part of how a bill becomes a law. It is, as the name suggests, the most formal part, but there are several other steps. So once that bill gets filed, it is then assigned to a committee based on the subject matter. So let's say, for example, we have a bill around solar energy. That bill would be assigned to the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee. Every bill that is filed gets a public hearing, which is an opportunity for anyone in the public to provide testimony for why or why not a bill should move that session. Typically, when you are at a public hearing, you have about 3 minutes to provide your testimony to a panel of legislators. Then the bill and the people who are hearing that testimony are the members of the committee that the bill was assigned to. Then, after hearing testimony on the bill, the members of that committee come together to vote to decide whether the bill is going to move forward in the legislative process. There are three different ways that they can report out a bill: either favorably, which moves it forward to the next stage of the process. They can either report it to study, which basically keeps it in the committee, or ought not to pass, which also keeps the bill within that committee. If the bill is reported out favorably, it goes to a secondary committee. The secondary committees are as follows. Ways and Means is the bill that is the committee that bills go to if it costs money. Let's say our bill around solar energy is around retrofitting older homes with solar panels, so it would cost money. Healthcare financing is a secondary committee if your bill costs money isn't related to healthcare. And the another option is the Rules Committee, which if it doesn't cost money, then the bill would be reported there. After the members of the secondary committee review that bill, it is then reported to the floor to be debated and voted on. When a bill comes to the floor, that is when legislators can file amendments and debate on amendments. Not every amendment gets a traditional vote, which is when we see legislators pressing their yay or nay buttons or doing a voice vote when they vocally say yay or nay. Some amendments get removed by the sponsor of that amendment, or sometimes amendments get consolidated, which is when they are bundled together and passed in batches. But amendments can really change the content of a bill. So it's really important to not just look at the bill language as it was filed, but to look at the bill language after it was amended and voted on the floor. Then let's say that bill passes in the House, that solar energy bill passed in the House. You do that all over again in the Senate, in the other branch. So before a bill becomes law, it has to be passed by both the House and the Senate. So it has to be passed by all 200 legislators. Once that happens, there are some possibilities that the two branches don't agree. So when that happens, we call a conference committee. Each branch, the House and the Senate, appoints 3 members of their chamber to be a part of a conference committee, which is a group of legislators who are charged with negotiating the differences between the House version and Senate version of a bill. Now, if they don't agree by a certain time period, the bill will stop there. There will be no more movement on the bill. However, if they are able to work out those differences, then they report that bill back to their respective branch to be voted on one more time. So there's a lot of ping-ponging here with the bills. So the conference committee process is a process without a strict timeline. It can be from as little as a day to multiple months. Finally, let's say the bill on solar energy was passed by both the House and Senate. It gets sent to the governor's desk. The bill will become law if the governor signs the bill. His signature is a final step in creating a law. The governor, though, has other options. He can let the bill sit on his desk for 10 days without a signature, or outright veto the bill. If a governor vetoes the bill, which he can do by one of two ways, by outright vetoing it or recommending changes, um, there's also the way where if he doesn't sign it before formal session comes to an end. We talked about that 2-year cycle. At the end of that 2-year cycle, any bills that have not achieved the governor's signature, regardless if they've been passed by either chamber, will not become law and have to go through the entire process again in that next session to become law. So if the governor does veto a bill, not all is lost. The legislature can override the bill. An override is when at least 2/3 of each chamber vote against the governor's veto on a bill. So there's another opportunity for advocacy even when the governor vetoes the bill. I would just wrap up to say that when a bill becomes law, it is often the result of several years and at some points decades of organizing by advocates to make relationships within the legislature, to make sure that legislators understand the nuances of their bill and policy priority. As you could see with this process, there are a lot of times for the language of a bill to change. In the amendment process, during the conference committee process. So just following, that's why we track bills, because they can change as they go through this legislative process, what they actually do within the law. So not all bills are created equal, and making sure that we know the details is really important. I hope you learned something from this presentation, and that your voice matters in this long and winding process. If you want to find more information about bills that you're interested in, check out malegislature.gov. There are 200 legislators, and their job is to listen to the people of Massachusetts. So find out who your legislator is and share your opinion with them. Not only is that their job, but that is how our state can move forward and pass laws that are really urgent. So get involved, and thank you so much for watching this presentation.